I can do it.
When I grew up, I went to be the chair of the board and sit in the right row. I can see people only have to aspire. Schools are sitting there and they're sitting in the chair.
No? How are you? Are you good? You reckon? How are you doing? No worries. No worries.
To have while we're doing our speech. Morning, everybody.
The one who was sitting out. No, they've moved me now. They put
right.
me. Okay.
They thought,
It's like.
but no, I don't have a speech, eh?
Yeah, but
Where's it? How's it? How are you?
This is what we've got.
Oh, okay, is
That's
that
your notes and the
that's
budget
the notes?
brief.
All right, thank you. Have you got the speech in case I need it? Just in case. So I've just done a shortened form of the speech. So I'll present and then it's your turn. To present anything you want to present. Did you come ready to present?
No, I assume that you process the press. Like if there's
All
any
right.
question in
Okay.
an area,
Okay.
then I would
Okay.
so that we don't
Okay.
confuse
Okay.
this weather is just. So my house is flooding because the things move in the tiles. So hold downstairs, but they're coming in tomorrow.
No, my lounge is flooded. We agreed with Randall tomorrow he's bringing cutters. We're taking the carpet out. It's that kind of swell.
Yeah, I'm just in. There's a wooden thing in the lounge. It's like the whole thing. You can see it swell. It's just.
But did you see Carlito when he flew in yesterday?
I flew Sunday night.
Oh, okay. Yesterday. see the ostriches? These poor ostriches. They're flattened up to their necks and they got their little necks out. And the farmers are trying to swim and
No,
catch them.
it's just.
They're ostriches. Oh my lord. No, at 9.
Nine.
No, that's fine. Where's Colin?
It's registering.
Huh?
It's still registering.
Why does Colin have to register for his own press conference?
Outside.
Oh, Parliament.
Oh, at Parliament.
God.
At Parliament. Okay.
So you can distribute us in Bagot
Until 10.
until 10.
Yeah, if we can ask them.
Yeah, I think
Because I just to, at 10 o'clock we can do whatever. I don't want to get into trouble.
I'm bothered until
But-
delivery and read against
But
delivery.
if they are some of them crossing live here, are some of them crossing live here,
Yeah.
well then it can't be embargoed if they're crossing live.
Let me.
But you're also reading into the recording.
So it doesn't matter. What is the point of that?
DG. I was so confused. How are you doing? Eva, good morning. Good morning.
SABC connected live, but
You know,
it's
maybe
outside.
It's fine.
You know, because I'm in hospital.
What? I
So
don't
last
care.
night I was
Because
just
they're going to
pumped
make
up
this
in
thing
my head. I was like,
virtual.
I shouldn't be going to work tomorrow. And then I was talking to my brother this morning.
Togo, no.
And I was talking to my brother this morning and he says, why are you going to work? Because you guys said it's virtual. So I was talking to him. He says, well, says, you could have just put a shirt on, stayed in bed and put your thing above your thing and then back to bed.
No, well, I mean, we all slept down here. Sat at the airport for hours and hours waiting for permission to land because the storm was so bad.
And
And
then
then
you
they
get
say,
here.
hello guys, it's virtual.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, no, we could have been in our jammies under the dinner.
when I got the first message, I said, there's no way we cannot go and dealt with the money already paid. Even if it was spent.
No, that's why I say to Feroz, just play by ear. People are here, we'll have our lines.
Because they're already here.
Yeah,
But at least we're done now after this.
the weather people are very sensational, dramatic. They said things will be flying, so don't even drive. Even in
There was
the
a dog flying actually, apparently. I'll find the picture. It's just. It was in the air and it did a.
I saw a person get blown over.
No, it's.
arrived Sunday evening. It was starting, and that was just the wind.
I was shearing now the chair of Prasa. It was last week I flew from Durban to. It was a 2.5-hour flight.
Look at this
That's
one.
how bad
This
it
one
was.
looks like the abominable snowman.
He's coming from the Antarctica.
You came on a gunner's tour.
How's it?
The CEOs are still there.
No, it's fine.
So
Yeah.
no, the flight from Durban was 2, and for an hour they had switched off the lights and no service. No, this was leaving Durban because we flew right into turbulence. So we were kept in this. So from last week it's just been, yeah.
Yeah, where
Hello,
you
Reggie. How are you?
Are you well?
Are you well?
my brother?
Bazosixabene sokunokubingelele futhi.
My phone can remember.
Chief, don't be dramatic. Kushama. We just spoke now. When we were landing, they said, 10 minutes to leave. Then he went up again. They've been
How are you? Are you good? Thank you for braving the weather.
So now they had to.
Hey, it's something else, no? Yeah. Hello, Hisham. How are you?
Tomorrow
doing some
Colin
landing
didn't-
into Dobu. We
You're
still
going
come for
there
45
tomorrow
minutes.
with your...
Protected
Are you
panic
doing
is
your...
what had happened because
breakfast thing.
the
Yes.
landing time for 45
Is,
minutes we still
they don't want it anymore.
There were some issues which I didn't like.
Oh, okay. No, just apply.
I'm hoping for your support.
Well, it depends.
I don't see my colleagues. I can see Linda. How are you, Linda? All right, colleagues, can we start? And those who are still in the queue, who are caught up in the queue as well, for reception. So they will find us on the way. My name is Colin Mkhuleko. I'll chair the press conference. As we know, this is just a prelude to our budget vote speech. So we'll allow the minister to just take us through the highlights of the speech. And of course, those who've been here for years, I know Lynn has been here. We've been here since 20 whatever.
play nice.
The speech would be.
Can you stay away from the fossil
Would
speech?
be embargoed. Would be embargoed until such time that the minister does deliver the speech, which would be at 10 o'clock. So at this point, we are joined by on my immediate left, by our acting DDG, Mr. Machalata Mkhuleko, and then of course the minister, who needs no introduction, and our deputy minister, who needs no introduction. At this point, Minister, the podium is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin, and allow me to acknowledge our Deputy Minister and also our Acting DG, all of the chairs and CEs of entities who have braved the cold weather and the flight delays yesterday to join us. Thank you very much for coming. And of course, members of the Fourth Estate, I'm sure you also had to wade through water and all sorts of things. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, today we table a budget of 102 billion rand for the Transport Department and all of its related entities. And we hope that this money will help us to build an integrated transport system that will serve the citizens of our country, allow them to get to work safely and on time, allow students to be able to access their studies at minimal cost, and of course to allow farmers, miners, car manufacturers, and the entire freight industry to ensure that produce reaches international markets as efficiently and quickly as possible. Of course, we are not operating in an environment of our choosing. The geopolitical and economic environment in which we are operating is filled with rapidly shifting challenges. There have been dramatic increases in the fuel price. And whereas South Africa was once regarded as the logistics hub of the Southern African region, we face increasing competition from our neighbors who are now also investing in their rail and port capabilities. Now, since the adoption of the National Rail Policy in 2022 and the Freight Logistics Roadmap in 2023, rail and port reform have been at the center of our agenda to build an integrated and sustainable transport system. The Transnet Infrastructure Manager was established in November 2024 and a month later published the first network statement together with rail access tariffs. The establishment of the Transnet Infrastructure Manager, what we call TRIM, allows Transnet to focus on the maintenance and revitalization of rail infrastructure while allowing third-party operators to increase the capacity and the volumes of tradable goods and commodities. And ladies and gentlemen, I can share with you that tomorrow TRIM will announce the names of the first 11 private operators who aim to move 24 million tons of freight per annum, starting from the 1st of April next year. And we believe that this will ensure that more South African minerals, vehicles, and agricultural produce reach international markets, securing jobs and earning much-needed revenue for our fiscus. In the new financial year, we are formally establishing the Transport Economic Regulator so that going forward, port and rail fees are independently determined to ensure a level playing field for all operators. Now, what we saw in the past financial year is the conclusion of the concession for Pier 2 in Durban, and this milestone establishes a bankable model for future public-private sector participation. This year, there is a robust pipeline of private sector participation projects advancing to market, including the Ngqura Manganese Export Corridor, Richards Bay Dry Bulk Terminal, and the container corridor between Gauteng and eThekwini. Through the budget facility for infrastructure, 16.8 billion in public investment has already been approved and is in execution across the coal, iron ore, and port infrastructure. Applications for a further 23.6 billion are being developed and will be submitted to the budget facility for infrastructure on an incremental basis. Recent events have demonstrated the vulnerability of our road transport industry to international fuel price variations and availabilities. National Treasury has provided much-needed short-term mitigation measures. The Road Accident Fund portion of the fuel levy has come under public scrutiny. The department is already reviewing the proposed road accident bill to reduce contingent state liability by creating a no-fault system and a standardized injury compensation system. In addition, we are now researching options for a hybrid funding model that will include both private and public contributions to lessen the burden on the fiscus going forward. Having said this, honourable members, we do want to emphasise today that road safety is a national crisis. Last year, 11,418 individuals lost their lives on our roads. And this is one of the worst road safety rates globally. During the course of the debate today, Deputy Minister Hlengwa will give more details on our consistent road safety campaign, which is slowly but steadily reducing the accident rate and the death toll. Over the past few years, we've seen a significant increase in trade movements to the port of Maputo. Freight traffic has reached 1,800 trucks a day crossing the Lubombo border. These numbers have contributed to congestion both at the Lubombo border and on the N4. The Cross-Border Transport Agency has been collaborating with the Border Management Agency, SARS, SANRAL, and other law enforcement authorities to find a lasting solution to the congestion and concomitant delays. Over the past few months, officials from South Africa and Mozambique have started to co-locate at the Lubombo port of entry and within the Kilometre 7 facility. And in simple layman's terms, co-locating means that all of these officials are located together so that we begin to introduce a one-stop facility for trucks that would be crossing our border and eliminate this issue of repeated queues that have caused enormous congestion in the past. By next year, we aim to integrate digital systems so that Kilometre 7 represents a critical reform intervention that will strengthen South Africa's seamless trade with Mozambique and reinforce our country's position as a reliable regional logistics and transport hub. And I think that we believe that this experimentation that we're doing around co-location will serve as a model for all other ports of entry. In the 26-27 financial year, targeting investments in maintaining, rehabilitating, upgrading, and expanding the road network remain key to the movement of people and goods. The South African National Roads Agency, SANRAL, is expected to receive almost 31 billion this year. These funds will be used for capital expenditure on the non-toll network, the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project operations, the N2 Wild Coast route for ongoing construction on major bridges, and the new road sections on all of our national highways, as well as the development of the Moloto Road corridor. Serious challenges remain at provincial and municipal levels, where finance and in-house capacity for road maintenance is often inadequate. Since 2013, provincial governments have transferred 13,000 kilometers of provincial roads to SANRAL for management and maintenance. This is not a sustainable long-term strategy and will ultimately impact SANRAL's ability to maintain the national road network without introducing further tolling. Next month, we will host a joint MINMEC between Treasury and Transport to find a mechanism to front-load provincial road maintenance grants so that provinces can upgrade more of their priority roads sooner. The revitalization of passenger rail continues to go from strength to strength, with yearly passenger journeys surpassing the 100 million mark in March this year. In Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Western Cape, we are increasing train frequencies, improving security, reducing vandalism, and ensuring connectivity for communities previously excluded from reliable and cheap public transport services. At the end of 2025, a request for information process for passenger rail was launched to gauge the appetite for investment in rapid regional rail, depot modernization, rolling stock leasing, automated fare collection, and optic fiber installation. Ladies and gentlemen, the taxi industry remains a key part of the national transport landscape, and is also one of the largest black-owned sectors in the country, with its revenue estimated at between 60 and 100 billion annually, contributing about 1.4% to GDP. This year, we will conclude the review on the taxi recapitalization grant. Work is being done between the department, taxi associations, and financial institutions to de-risk the cost of new vehicles and provide affordable finance to taxi operators. In addition, together with provinces and municipalities, we are reviewing the road-based public transport grants, including the Public Transport Network Grant and the Public Transport Operations Grant. Our goal with these grant reforms is to introduce efficiency, reduce waste, and ensure a more cost-effective solution for commuters. Of course, an integral part of our transport system is aviation. We're pleased to say that AXA recorded 37.4 million passenger arrivals and departures in the year to date, representing a significant increase from 34 million recorded in the previous year. In relation to air cargo, strategic infrastructure investment is on track to commence in March 2027. This development is complemented by a focused sector strategy targeting high-value cargo segments, including pharmaceuticals, e-commerce, aerospace and defense, perishables, diamonds and metals, and automotive components. To prevent future air traffic disruption and additional costs to the industry, Air Traffic Navigation Services has ensured 250 out of 388 published flight procedures have been successfully maintained. A project management office has been established to proactively monitor compliance, and trainee flight procedure designers are progressing towards qualification by mid-2026. To address red tape in the issuing of air services licenses and foreign operator permits, new licensing council members have been appointed, and the automation of these processes is underway to ensure future traceability and transparency. As our national flag carrier, South African Airways remains a key national asset. The airline is hard at work to reformulate its corporate plan in the face of an exponential increase in aviation fuel costs. No effort will be spared to ensure that route rationalization and careful fleet expansion, the entity and its subsidiaries remain going concerns. Now, as you all know, the Department of Transport is responsible for oversight over 20 state-owned public entities. Ensuring good governance and focus on legislative mandate is proving a difficult task. Our efforts in this regard are fourfold. First of all, we're putting a lot of effort into making sure that as we reappoint new boards for these entities, there is a structured balance between the governance component, in other words, accountants and lawyers, and making sure that there are professionals who understand the core business of the entity and have historical experience in that sector. Secondly, we have established in the department an entity oversight branch that is responsible for all the governance and monitoring and evaluation compliance mechanisms. Thirdly, to deal with irregular expenditure and allegations of financial mismanagement, both through the implementation of systematic consequence management and proactive probity audits. You would remember, ladies and gentlemen, that once there had been a decision to appoint a service provider for the DLCA, we asked the Auditor General to come in and audit. And as a result of that probity audit, we were able to set aside the award and prevent further irregular expenditure in the sector. We are currently undertaking a similar probity audit in Transnet on the Gauteng signalling contract, and we think that that will assist us in making sure that any award we make going forward is fully compliant with the entire regulatory environment. In other words, prevention is better than the cure. Fourthly, and finally, in this financial year, the department plans to introduce a shareholder-led evaluation aimed at enhancing the assessment of boards by linking their performance to that of the entities they oversee. So we can't have a situation where an entity achieves 30% performance and the board gets an 80% effectiveness rating. There has to be a relationship between the evaluation of the board and the performance of the entity, and that shareholder-led evaluation is going to assist us in that regard. At this point, allow me to pause and hand over to yourselves for any questions you might want to ask.
Thanks so much, Minister. We'll take questions. I must also indicate that we have chairpersons of boards and the CEOs of our entities who are joining us today. And of course, the Minister has a discretion to point the question to the right direction. So at this point, we'll take hands. I know Linda is coming first. 1, 2, 3. We'll take this 3 sets of questions, and then we'll take the second part. I'll notate your hand that side. Linda, if you can just introduce yourself and the news outlet you represent.
Yes, thanks for the Editorial Business Day. Minister, I don't know if you could give further details. You mentioned applications to the budget infrastructure facility, whether you could give more details about that, and more details about the RAF model. I don't know if I heard correctly that you want to introduce private contributions. If you could elaborate your thinking on that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Introduce yourself.
Good morning, Minister Matthew Hirsch from Financial Mail. When you speak about passenger rail, you recently announced the National Rail Plan last month, and one of the things mentioned in the plan was the handing over to municipalities of rail, and I was just wondering if there were timelines that the department can actually say when that might happen, and specifically for the 3 regions that is mentioned in the plan. And also just about you talk about the upgrading of stations. We know that the previous contracts that were awarded for that were subject to court cases, and it's been a long, protracted court case. And what is the latest on that in terms of the recruitment of that money that was for work not done?
Upgrading of stations.
The last question. You can go ahead.
Good morning, Minister. Naila Ibrahim here from News 24. It's a similar question to Linda. It was the same about the RAF levy and scrutiny around that, but just maybe your and Deputy Minister Hlengwa, obviously, your views on the turnaround of the entity. Because obviously I've been a part of the RAF inquiry that took place at Scopa. Just maybe your thoughts on that and where the entity is going to be going forward. I know that they're still looking at the appointment of a permanent CEO. There was an interim board that has been appointed. Just maybe your comments on when that will become permanent as well. And then I also wanted to ask about the digital system for trucks, which you're planning to introduce at the Limpopo border. Does that have to do with the upgrading of the 6 border posts that was just announced, or is that a separate thing which the department is planning to sort of introduce as well? Just maybe more details on that. Thank you so much.
Okay, Minister.
Linda, Michelle Phillips from Transnet is here. Can I suggest after this you could have a discussion with her on the detail on the budget facility applications, because there is detail on that. On the RAF model, I think that obviously the concern that Deputy Minister Hlengwa and I have is the contingent liability that the road accident fund poses to government as a whole. And to manage that in the medium term, we have to amend the Act so that we get away from the fault system, and also we have to introduce a standard schedule of benefits. Because at the moment, unfortunately, although this is a publicly funded benefit scheme, people don't benefit equitably. And that, of course, increases the contingent liability to the state. So I think that's the first thing that we have to do. The second thing is that we do recognize that in the current context, we are not going to be able to go to National Treasury and say accident victims are owed too much money. Please increase the proportion of the fuel levy that goes to the road accident fund. That is going to be very difficult to do. So what we want to look at is a hybrid model. There has been a view in the public domain that we should only work on something like an insurance scheme model where all vehicles and drivers would contribute. But I think the concern that we have is that the implications that could have for public transport operators, but also a concern that you may find that people default and then they're passengers, and 45% of road accident victims are pedestrians. Pedestrians are not covered. So I think this is why we are researching the possibilities of a hybrid model so that there could be state support, but there would also be driver contributions. Matthew, I think that it's important to understand the National Rail Plan together with the rail bill. And we do hope, DDG, I'm looking at you, we do hope that within a couple of months, we will be able to take the rail bill to Cabinet and then release it for public comment. The National Rail Plan is a planning instrument rather than a policy tool. So I think it's important to understand that what it's trying to lay down is what will rail look like in the next 50 years, so that we can all make decisions about should you build this line or that line, and we shouldn't have a situation where rail development becomes a vanity project. But also because there are complicated issues to do with gauge, that needs to be done in a very carefully thought through manner so that we continue to have interoperability within the country and also with the subcontinent. So the National Rail Bill is where we would put in the issue of devolution. And I think that what we would just do in the bill is to say these are the conditions under which devolution could happen. And one has actually researched this issue internationally. And the international benchmark for devolution is a population of 18 million in a particular area. And the reason is that you have to be able to have cross-subsidization within a city, because some lines will generate more income than other lines. And I mean, it's my view, and I think this is supported by international evidence, that passenger rail generally has to be subsidized, whereas freight rail is a commercial operation. So we would need to talk about the issue of population size, because at the moment you may find that a rail line in a particular province is actually cross-subsidized by a rail line in another province. And if you're going to devolve, then you're going to have all kinds of strange complexities that you would be dealing with. Of course, another issue is capacity. So, I mean, right now, a lot of municipalities can't deliver water and electricity. I would be loath to give them rail as well. And then, so those, I think, capacity and financial viability and population size would really be the key issues that we would need to build in. I'm uncertain which court case is dealing with the upgrading of stations. So I think that you can have a bilateral with the CEO of PRASA. He's here. He can inform you on that. You want to say something about the road accident fund?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Minister, Acting DG, Mkhuleko colleagues. Just to indicate briefly that what Minister has spoken about, the outlook we have is to ensure the long-term financial sustainability and viability of the road accident fund in order for it to meet its mandate and obligation, and hence the legislative reviews in which we are currently seized with. We are dealing with a gap analysis and case study at this point in time to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's. Secondly, the entity is turning around. We have recorded in the past financial year an increase in the payouts of claims. Since September last year, the entity has been able to settle about 4.6 billion rands per month, which is an increase from 2.1 billion as an average of the previous years. And what this has indicated is that cumulatively the entity has paid in the past financial year 43.2 billion rands worth of claims. So we're clearing the backlog as part of an urgent response to the public outcry which is there. We are stabilizing governance. Consequence management is a priority within the entity. We have, as indicated also in the portfolio committee, we advertised a new board, and I can report that we have now published the names of the applicants or nominees for the board for public comment as part of the process and as part of what Minister has indicated, going broader efforts to stabilize the entity. Second to last is to say, obviously, if you want to resolve the RAF matters, you need to go above and beyond the institution. It is also about the reduction of fatal crashes and crashes on our roads, so that you can reduce the liability as well. So what we are doing within the ecosystem, therefore, of road safety is part of interventions to assist the road accident fund as well. And as you'd be aware, we are also dealing with the situation of electric vehicles as well, and that's got an impact on the revenue generation streams of the road accident fund. So part of what we are doing with the gap analysis, therefore, is to say, how do we deal with that particular problem? So for us, the whole ecosystem of integration around RAF is critical. So I think, Minister, I will leave it at that, but the work of the legislative amendments on RAF is currently underway, but we need to make sure that the ecosystem, which has fundamentally changed from when RAPS was initially introduced, we need to be able to update it correctly, and we're at the tail end of that process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Well, drama begins. We've got to be out of here at 2:15. So I'll take two questions. There was a question here, and then I'm going to wind that up. So we'll start with you. Just introduce yourself and the news outlets you represent, please.
Good morning, Minister and the Deputy, Lula Mamakia, SABC. Just want to check if the department has received any reports of public transport disruption due to the inclement weather. And secondly, is SAA heading for another bailout? Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Minister, one of the line items... Sorry, beg your pardon, Lyndon Burns from Plain Talking. There was a line item in the budget this year for the establishment of an independent air accident and investigation unit. Are you able to give a timeline on that, when that's going to occur this year? Also, what's your understanding of the situation of jet fuel supply beyond June? And what contingency measures is government considering? Be good to know if government's able to guarantee this, or say with certainty that the industry will have sufficient fuel beyond June. And lastly, you mentioned this target of mid-2026 for the suspended instrument flight procedures. But I checked this morning, there are 192 currently suspended. The most recent was suspended last week, and before that, some of the procedures for Cape Town suspended on the 28th of April. So this target, does that just cover the ones that with the 300 plus that were suspended in 2024, or does it cover the other procedures that have subsequently been allowed to expire?
Okay, thank you so much, Minister. Over to you. Those will be our last questions. Unfortunately, we had planned to have a session tomorrow morning, but unfortunately, the commission came in the way, so we couldn't put it together. So this would be, we'll engage as time goes on. We might go to the press clubs as well, so where you can have an opportunity to engage with the minister. Minister,
thank you very much, Lulama. I think that what we have experienced, in fact, it's been an occurrence over the last 2 to 3 weeks, is that we've had to actually close national roads and also secondary regional roads as a result of widespread flooding. And there have been a lot of deviations in areas such as, for example, the Northern Cape, Northwest, and more recently the Eastern Cape, where we've had very unusual extreme weather events that have forced us to close roads. Obviously, yesterday, I was flying yesterday, there was widespread delays in terms of weather, of flights that were coming here. And one can only assume by the scale of the flooding that I saw when I flew in yesterday, that obviously there's going to be delays across the system as people navigate very wet roads and flooded portions of roads in urban areas. I do not support a bailout for SAA. My view is that government finances in the transport sector must be used to fund working class commuters and not used for airlines, which in my view are more of a middle class choice of facility. That doesn't mean that we are not working hard to support SAA, and we're in constant contact with the board on ways in which they are coping with the current difficulties that they face, and we will continue to work hard with them to try and ensure that the national carrier can operate on profitable routes and that it can sustain this period, which we don't imagine will last forever. Lyndon, the independent investigative organ has been appointed by the Portfolio Committee. They did the interviews. We are waiting for it to be tabled in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces. I've actually phoned both the Speaker of the National Assembly and the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces to say to them that this matter is urgent and we cannot continue to wait, because it is also holding up the Civil Aviation Act, because the President can't proclaim that act, promulgate that act, until this board is established. So I am crying on a regular basis to both speakers, but I have to respect the separation of powers in the way that I cry. There's a special way that you cry that respects separation of powers. Not my usual bullying way, you know. The CEO of ATNS is here. Can you have a bilateral with him on what is suspended and so on? But you would know that we are in the process of replacing technological systems at all of the airports across the country. There was a big mess in the way that it was done in George. I didn't cry nicely there. And we've now put up a task team to make sure that as those procedures are going to be suspended for refurbishment purposes, there must be alternative procedures in place, because we understand, particularly in the southern provinces, this is not a good time of year to have instrument landing procedures suspended. Thank you very much.
Jet fuel.
Oh, jet fuel. I'm not aware that we're running out of jet fuel. Are we running out of jet fuel? No, Mpumi says we're not running out of jet fuel. What we're worried about is the price of the jet fuel, not the supply.
Thank you so much, Minister. That brings us to the end of our press conference. We do want to request the CEO of Transnet, RASA and ATNS that have been requested to engage with journalists who are there, so that if they can just remain with us.
And AXA on the jet fuel.
Yes, and AXA as well. So what happens now is that everybody else moves to fire and ice, except for the DDGs, the minister in the office upstairs, and the rest will then...
We've got an audience.
He's trying to replicate the house.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Deputy Minister, just quickly, what's the latest contingent liability for RAF, and does it have enough to pay out all outstanding claims?
You're going to have to, well, the CEO is not here, but what I can indicate is that we continue to generate revenue and prioritizing the payouts. As I'm saying, there's an increase in our monthly payouts from about